Hey, sixth grade. Today we're going to look at the rise of the English monarchy. We mentioned in the last lesson um, about the rise of different nation states. So we're going to look at England. And they're especially important because England eventually is going to help lay the seeds that will establish the United States. Um, rise of the Kingdom of England. In the early Middle Ages, England was never one united place. It had been controlled by different tribes and different factions had come and conquered it. For example, the Romans for a while controlled England. Um, but in the early Middle Ages, in the 800s, most of the rule is split between two different tribes, the Anglo tribe in the north and the Saxon tribe to the south. And King Alfred is often credited as being the first king of England because he's the first one to unite the tribes together to stop a invasion of people from Denmark. And that term Anglo is still very much connected to British history, British culture. It's a prefix that's often used to describe things. So, for example, if you hear somebody say, I'm reading about Anglo-American relations, we're talking about British and American relations. Make sense? So, the Anglo-Saxons ruler in 1066 dies, and there's no heir. And there's a lot of controversy. Some people saying in his deathbed, the former king named a British heir, another man by the name of William of Normandy from France, a noble who was good friends with him, said it was promised to him. So the British nobleman's like, nah, I'm taking it. And William the Conqueror, as he'll become known, invades England. He's one of the few people to successfully invade and take over England in history. He defeats Harold, his rival, gets killed in battle, as you see here. So, oh, and he's like, I'm William, I got a crown and a helmet. And this guy's like, yeah. That's a very high-tech analysis of what happened at the Battle of Hastings, where William the Conqueror will solidify control of England. And that control as the Normandy, the House of Normandy, the Normandy dynasty, will rule over multiple generations and include 6 different monarchs that are tied by blood to William. There he is. He's got an awesome mustache. William the Conqueror, it's funny, he's so often associated with England, but he most likely spoke French. He was mostly French. He was from France when he came over. So it's funny, he's going to infuse a lot of medieval French ideas into some of the ideas of England. He establishes a lot of precedents. He centralizes the government a lot more, makes it much more unified and controlled throughout England, including pushing for more and more of a solidified system of law. His son, Henry II, is going to establish a trial by jury. His grandson, Henry II is going to establish trial by jury and due process rights in England. We're also going to see during the rule of the House Normandy that English, the language, comes about. English is a weird hybrid language, and any of you who have learned English as a second language know it's a little bit tricky because all the rules are often contrary because England is a mutt language. It came from part French, which is part Latin, but also it came from Anglo-Saxon, which has a lot of Germanic and Scandinavian roots. So it's a bizarrely mixed up language. That's why there's so many rules that run in contrast for one another. Yay. Eventually, the House of Normandy is going to have some problems, and there's going to be some trouble in the kingdom. Henry II is renowned as being a pretty powerful king, maybe not the best guy, but a very successful, powerful king. And his sons don't necessarily do the best job after him. his oldest son, Richard, is also known as Richard the Lionhearted, because he basically wanted to spend all of his time fighting in war and battle. He was kind of addicted to war, and he spent most of his reign in the Middle East fighting the Crusades, the unsuccessful wars of the powers of Europe to try to take over the quote Holy Land in the Middle East. So he spends a lot of time fighting unsuccessful wars, which, wars are very expensive. And then he gets kidnapped trying to come home. And then in order to pay his ransom, England, his mom, Eleanor of Aquitaine, and his brother John raise taxes quite a bit. So they free the king, but they bankrupt the kingdom. Richard will die, and then his brother, King John, will take over. And little brother is never really ready for the throne. King John is a bit entitled, a bit of a crybaby, and he wants more and more land, more and more power. So he keeps attacking the nobles, taking people's land, pushing forward more and more heavy taxes, passing new laws all the time without anybody checking his power, and often breaking the same laws that he's passing. If you're familiar with the story of Robin Hood, King John is the model of the king in the Robin Hood story. So the nobles, the lords and dukes and everyone else who had ruled parts of England with feudalism, had enough of King John, and they go and threaten him, like, hey, we have this paper here that you're going to sign. He's like, why would I do that? I'm a king. I do whatever I want. And they say, no, that's what we're going to stop. You have to sign this piece of paper that says you're no longer above the law, that you have to obey the law. Like, King John's like, well, why would I do that? I'm the king. I get to do whatever I want. It's good to be the king. And they're like, wait, King John, there's something else you forgot. You also have to get permission from us to pass any new laws or taxes. This way you can't just pass any law that you want. It has to go through a council and we vote on it. This council will eventually be called Parliament. King John's like, I'm not doing that. Essentially, I'd be giving up a lot of my power to you. I'd still be king, but you would have a say in ruling. I'm not doing that. And then Noble said, oh, there's one other thing. If you don't sign it, we'll cut off your head. To which King John's like, all right, where do I sign? No problem. I'm in. Sounds great. And this paper is called the Great Charter. A charter is a contract. Great Charter in Latin is Magna Carta. So this document, the Magna Carta, is really important. It establishes that the king is no longer above the law, lays the roots of the British constitutional monarchy, which we know is a type of republic, where there is someone who inherits rule, but has a lot of limitations on their power, and most of the power is in the elected leaders. In this case, a parliament of that votes on and passes the laws that the king proposes. Eventually, the king will have less and less power. Today, the monarchy in England is more of a figurehead, and the real power is in the parliament. So, the Magna Carta established the idea that no one is above the law. So, why is it important that a king, a president, and any leader must obey the same laws as everyone else? Like, I have to obey the laws of punctuation. There you go. Post up your answer. Can't wait to read it. Have a fantastic weekend, everybody. Happy Friday.